At the end of the last video, I was saying that symbol weight pretty much is a must. I will show you some rare exceptions to a couple of these at the end of this video series, and also note how symbol weight ties into item number 2, because if the symbol weight is heavier, in other words, not made up of fine details, it's going to be easy identification. And then as it relates to 5, it will also reduce better. You relate this back to some of the most popular logos. You see general heaviness to the mark, so that even from a great distance, it still looks like that same mark. Number 9, flow. Consider designing marks where the white space flows rather than becomes trapped. The eye then can move through the form rather than be stopped by it. So here's the trapped. It's not saying that there's anything wrong with this. It's just there is more opportunity for the eye to flow through and the participant to become more engaged. So this obviously is not a must. It's just look for opportunities, just like in the negative space. Look for opportunities where you can make the negative space into something that is conceptually sound for the logo, and thus get a double wow factor. Here's a couple examples of logos with flow, and these also take advantage of that trapped negative space, because the negative space makes a S here, makes an E here, but here's one that's just about the flow, that the eye can just travel a path of the negative space. 10, direction. When directional indication is important in a symbol or a logo, pointing it up and to the right is more effective than down or to the left. These forward upward directions are perceived as positive by the viewing audience. Now that's especially true in our culture, and that again is when you have your little design group that you bounce ideas off of, and you're working for an international company. Hopefully you know somebody from that area, or you just really delve in with the client and tell them, okay, well, what are things that could be perceived is not so good in your culture, and what is your general direction that's considered positive. But these for us are fighting, or just like a downer. Think of thumbs down. You wouldn't want a thumbs down for the logo for your company. You want us to have like a rocket launch, if you will, positive, flowing, upward, high energy. So if you look at the Nike logo, the overall, this kind of takes your eye, keeps it in the composition, the gestalt part of the competition, but when it comes out of it, the outward gestalt, which could be the only criticism of this logo, is in the upward and right facing direction, the positive for us. Now, Shell, on the other hand, is kind of pointing down. The good thing is if your logo is pointing down, you want to make sure that it is keeping the eye in the logo, possibly pointing towards the type. But always think of all the implications. We'll make up a fictional example here. Let's say you have a company called Saddleback Financial, because you're located close to the Saddleback Mountain. So you think, okay, what's the overall shape of the mountain, kind of like Saddleback College did, and you put that into the logo. Now think about this for a couple minutes, even pause and see if you can write down 2 things that are wrong about this, even beyond what the immediate topic. So for one, the overall direction, although it starts to feel positive, ends with a negative. But now think about the subconscious. So you got a company here, you designed a logo for Saddleback Financial. Are you showing them in a positive light even beyond the direction of the logo, right? So remember, item number 1 on this list was always show, oops, let's get back there, positive association. So if you haven't thought of it yet, financial, or even if it's not a financial company, but a company where your client is going to be asking investors to give money. Well, how do you think some investors might see this? stock market chart, right? Going up, went back down, went up, and you ended up losing money. And metering. Build marks with a limited vocabulary of structure. Meter and control lines and spaces. Beware of mixing linear and silhouette forms. So it kind of really goes back to 2, 5, and 8. Easy identification. Don't make too many things going on in the logo. 5 was reduction. If you have too many things going on and a mix of silhouetted forms and thin forms like the snowman example I did, it's not going to hold up very well. Number 8, visual weight. If you're going for mostly a heavy weight, it certainly means that you can't be mixing silhouetted type bold. Think of the Apple logo with the thin wispy hands of the snowman. So if each and every time you go to design a logo, you just remind yourself of these 11 things, you're going to be much more successful. Now, when is it okay to snap out of some of these things even that are labeled a must? Well, for the most part, it really isn't. There's usually not a good case for breaking these, which mostly come down to simplicity, if you need that kind of thumbprint identity where people are going to easily recognize your company and easily recognize it from a distance. Every now and then you'll have a client that just wants you to break away from that for whatever reason, and you just need to explain to them why it's not good. Situations where you pretty much would talk the client just straight on out of it would be financial companies, because if you have a thin, wispy logo, it's going to make the company look weak. People aren't going to want to invest money. Now, if you have let's say a perfume company, and this kind of thing would maybe mostly apply to companies that are seen as softer, more feminine. In fact, let's just look at like perfume logos. So, something like this that's definitely not going to reduce very well. Details are going to be lost. Could you get away with it? It depends. Are they ever going to be advertising on the side of a bus or need to get this logo real small on a business card? Then talk them out of it. Otherwise, like I said, there's always exceptions where, well, let's just say there's exceptions that can work. Now, as a beginning graphic designer in a class, I would say 90% of the time I'm going to push you more in the direction of going with the simple so that you can learn from it. Every now and then a student will come up with 2 really great examples and one happens to break the rules, and it's just so good that I'll say, you might want to work on that one. That could look good in a portfolio. But again, like I've been saying before, if you have a portfolio put together, don't have everything in there breaking the rules, because what's going to happen, someone looking to hire you is going to think this person doesn't quite understand design. If they're looking through your portfolio, and for the most part all of your type meets what is considered the general guidelines, the way that you set your typography and you understand logo design, look, all of these work in one color. All of that stuff is taken into consideration, and then every now and then you have something that is great but kind of breaks the rules. That's a much friendlier portfolio for getting you hired.